Hello everyone, I'm Polina Orlovska and welcome to the Media and Communication Guest Speaker Series hosted here at the 10 Country University. In this session we will be joined by experts from all sectors of the media industry who will share their valuable insights and experiences. You can catch us live on our YouTube channel and interact with us with Twitter using our hashtag #CITM. This week we are joined by two guest speakers, founder and chairman from Big Cat Marketing Agency, Anthony Tatum, and head of sales and marketing at Mac Birmingham Client Services Manager, Lindsay Cook. Our team today is marketing and communication. So let's give a big round of applause for our first guest. Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you. So today I'm going to be talking about me, also sharing my opinion of the state of the advertising industry, talking about my experience and the history of the company I work for, and then going into some of the expectations and challenges of how you might get into the industry, and then some tips and tricks that will hopefully help you. So to start off about my story, so I've been in the industry for 25 years now, and thankfully I'm still incredibly excited about working in the industry. It's really rewarding to build brands and grow businesses and help business owners to really achieve their dreams. At my agency, Big Cat, we get to figure out the best and most honest ways to grow brands and bring them to market. I also get to work with some amazing creatives and strategists, both on the agency side and also with our clients. But what I've known for some time now, it's not about PR, it's not about advertising, digital or social. It's about everything working together in harmony to achieve a brand or business's goals. So I think from my point of view, the advertising industry is a bit broken. So why do I think that? Well, larger agencies, big global and networked companies group operational functions into digital, into account management, creative and social, and they sit together in their little groups and clans or huge groups, and this causes politics and bureaucracy. Worse, these big agencies target each function with financial targets and budgets. This causes vested interests in what's best for them rather than what's best for the clients. At the other end of the spectrum, freelancers and single service agencies specialise, but what that means is whatever the problem, whatever the challenge, the answer is always the same, what it is they do. This means that they lack the ability to see the big picture and have the broad range of skills required to have sustainable impact on clients' growth and the bottom line. So the solution to the problem as I see it. So at Big Cat we are service agnostic. So if brand building is the answer, we don't offer pay-per-click. If sales activation is required, we don't offer PR. In reality, the solution, the answer is never quite as simple as one service or another. Big Cat was born full service, so I'll tell you how Big Cat came about in a moment. Each function in the agency is equally resourced, developed and supported with very skilled and experienced heads of departments sitting together physically next to each other to enable and facilitate collaboration and allow that flow of communication that agencies with disparate teams or freelancers or small agencies that have to work in networks don't have. In our agency, the collaboration is such that PR pimps SEO, animation makes our social media campaigns pop, creative builds the advertising effectiveness of our campaigns. The other thing that I have developed in the agency is a really positive culture. So that comes from from when we first recruit, so making sure we find the right people. It's not about skills, because we train all of that in. It's about values and a willingness to collaborate, to be curious, to have this kind of ambitious realism which we work hard to build on people, and also giving a damn about the efficacy of our campaigns, giving a damn about each other, really. So that's what why Big Cat is so great. But I'd like to just go back to the beginning of where this all came from. So I arrived in Birmingham in the early 90s, went to University of Birmingham studying an awful course, which I would not recommend, Russian and engineering. I had a very unimaginative careers advisor who, if you were good at sums, it was either accountancy or engineering. So I went for engineering because I couldn't think of anything worse than accountancy. So hated my course, but absolutely loved being around 4,000 or 5,000 19, 20-year-olds. It was amazing. I just moved down to Birmingham from Manchester, where there was an amazing music scene just starting in the late 80s and early 90s. Acid house turned into dance and house music. So there was some amazing things going on in clubs like Hacienda and Cream. Came to Birmingham like a red brick campus. It was very dull. So me and a few friends started organising music events. So it was Old Joe's and Berlin's, and it's a beautiful old building, the Students' Union at Birmingham. Started organising parties there, and then when I left university, this continued. So I started inviting all my university friends, and a club night called SLAG. It's an acronym for straight, lesbian, and gay. So it was a mixed night in Birmingham. It was quite forward-looking. The imagery and the language and the fun and playfulness we were having with bondage gear and stuff really helped us to stand out. What we found back then was it wasn't about any one thing. We tried everything we could to get 900 people every Friday to turn up at the steering wheel. And there's a thread that's carried on with everything we do since then. After SLAG, I became the ENTS manager at Coventry Uni here. Back in the heady days of the late 90s, you used to have a 1,900 capacity club called the Planet. I don't know where I am, so I don't know where it is, but it was kind of that way, I think. And it was on 4 floors. It had a bar, it had an amazing main arena, second arena, and a VIP lounge. So it was an amazing thing, but it was losing a lot of money, and we were really good at getting thousands of people to attend events on a weekly basis. So we took that gig on. The university sold it a few years later, and then we started opening bars. We rolled out the Brixton Academy brand around the UK and worked on V Festival for a couple of years. So very entertainment, very music-focused start to my marketing career. And then in 2000, I launched Big Cat. So we started full service. So we started straight out of the traps, offering media and advertising, public relations, which is what the Brixton Academy and V Festival guys wanted. We were promoting student nights at a number of venues and offering kind of youth engagement consultancy for nightclub brands. What we built Big Cat out of being is it's no nonsense. It's all about hitting the numbers. If we don't deliver what you want us to deliver, we will get sacked. So no nonsense in that we're as equally invested in the success of your brand, product, service, whatever, as we are. We are HQ'd in Birmingham, but also have an office in Paddington, London, near one of the new Crossrail sites. Fully integrated. So that starts with the directors being very skillful in their siloed skill set, but also equally amazing at integrated working. We've got 15 staff in the agency, and we're doing a really exciting research project with University of Birmingham Linguistics School, which is testing and checking our creative, our websites and our branding using eye tracking technology and biometrics, which then informs how people are reacting emotionally rather than what they tell you they're doing in a focus group or write down in a questionnaire later. So it kind of reads how they react emotionally. We're going to be working with the computer science or the brain science team at some point, where they're going to have one of those funny skull caps on to try and get a deeper understanding of which areas of the brain are stimulated through creative. There's our social media, Twitter, tag and website if you'd like to follow us as well. So a bit more about the agency. So I hinted at this already, but we're split into 4 teams, equally resourced, equally important: creative, advertising, digital and comms. And each one of these offers maybe 3, 4 or 5 services. I won't go into them. Lists of services are boring. But as I said, we do work for some clients where all they want is social media campaigns. But where the magic happens is when all of the services are working in harmony. If media is working less well than digital, we don't say, well, the advertising P&L is more important than what is right for the client. So we will shift budgets around. If we're very honest, if things aren't working and other things are, that we will move budget and effort into different areas. Some of our main client sectors that we work in. So our background is attracting thousands of people to destinations. So we do a lot of work in hospitality. So that is bars and restaurants and hotels and cafes, leisure destinations, and things like gyms and tourist boards and things like that. So a lot of work in hospitality. Retail, so we work with a number of shopping centres and retail brands. We launched Grand Central in Birmingham, which is the shopping centre above New Street Station, 3 or 4 years ago. And we work with a number of shopping centres around the UK. Again, that is just about getting large volumes of people week in, week out to these sites. And then finally, we do a lot of work in the charity sector. Part of giving a damn and part of being wholly responsible for everything that we do works really well for the charitable sector, because for every £1 they spend, they need 5 back. And they support people with all kinds of complex needs and conditions, and a lot of the work we do is in health or mental health or children's charities. So here's a bunch of clients that we work with in the hospitality sector. So I don't know if any of these are in Coventry. I've not been here for a while. Do you have a B@1 cocktail bar or Alchemist? Any of those brands? So Mitchells and Butlers, one of the biggest pub cos in the UK, and we work for Ember Inns. And then Tandem at the bottom there in the centre is a brand new product, a brand new brand, a new brand from Cyrus Toddywaller, the celebrity chef. I've got a very brief case study to talk about in a moment about that. So now the moment of truth, if the video is going to actually work. So we'll see. But if not, I'll just sing the song and do the dance moves, and then you can see that. So Aspire is a national charity that supports people with spinal cord injuries. So lots of rugby players and horse riders, as well as other people who've had accidents, break their back, and then it's a real life-changing condition. So they do a national swim challenge, and we every year refresh this challenge, and with a view to raising £500,000 to £600,000. So it's really important that we hit those numbers. So each year we come up with a new creative, and this is last year's creative. So here goes. A video is about to pop. Okay. So I think we need to swipe the screens. It's an amazing video. Here we go. So the idea there was to profile real people as the heroes of this fundraising activity. You had to swim 22 miles in your own pool, which is no mean feat, and then raise money for this amazing charity. So now we want to get back to that. This would all be edited together perfectly and it'll be fine. Yes, thank you very much. So yeah, we commissioned some real people who were going to actively take part in it and did some videos around them and told their stories on social media and then tracked them using influencers to share their stories. And it worked really well. This guy is another example of the work we do. So this is Cyrus Todiwala. He's a regular on Saturday Kitchen, and he recently did a show called Spice. I've forgotten what it was called. Another TV show on the BBC talking about Indian cuisine and spices. So we love these kind of projects because someone came and said, we've got a celebrity chef, we've got loads of money, we haven't got anything else. We haven't got a name, we haven't got a brand, we don't know how to launch the restaurant, but what we want to create is a national brand that we roll out with many sites around the UK, so it's absolutely perfect for us. So the name Tandem was brought about because it's Indian cooking styles and Indian spicing using organic, local, high-quality produce. So that's the tandem there. It's also he's a Zoroastrian, and the UK guys, and it's a UK guy. So the kind of meeting of cultures as well. So, and then we developed the brand, and we're involved in the interior design and planning the integrated marketing communications plan. So that's a really cool piece of work for us. So now going into the talk to you now about how does one get into the industry, into the marketing communications industry, and it is quite fragmented. So you can choose an area of specialism, and I believe that this course allows you to taste different areas of the marketing mix. So, but I think expectation. So as a business owner, as someone who is approached by wannabe advertisers and PR experts of the future, the things that I expect is, one of them is confidence. The first one is confidence. So confident enough to reach out to me confident enough about what it is you want to do. So that's the first one. Number 2 is experience. If you come and say, I've never done anything before, but I want a job from you, it doesn't quite work that way. So you do need to get out into industry, and you do need to have had an internship, had some work experience, done something on your course that makes you stand out, because there are a lot of students and graduates coming out who are completely vanilla and have got nothing special to talk about. So it's really important that you have some level of experience. If you can get an internship, or you've got a few weeks of work experience, it stands out a mile. Being proactive, so that is learning about the people that you approach. Don't just say hello. You know, it should be, hi, Anthony. It should be, you should know what the agency is all about and what we're not about. And then finally, focused. Don't just say, I want a job. Have you got any jobs? Because we're looking for people who know what they want out of life. So your time at university, you should know now what you want to be and want to do. We're all living longer, so you can do all kinds of things. But right now, when you leave here, if you want a job in advertising or comms or digital or creative, you need to know that and ask for that. So be focused. And my final but one slide is some top tips. So I've mentioned a few of these already, but do your homework. Know about the owner, know about the clients, know about the services, be able to talk to them about their culture and wins and awards and stuff like that. So do your homework. Intern, it's really, really important, and not everyone is so rich that their parents just pay for them to work for free for 3 months. But there's no easy wins in this game. If you have to have 2 jobs or 3 jobs to get an internship, then if you're passionate enough to get into the industry, then you'll make it work. Get onto LinkedIn and see who you know and who knows people you want to know. People on your course, ask Daniel who he knows in the industry and whether he can introduce you to anybody. You need to be brave and proactive and ask for intros from people. If you want to go in agency side, which is what we are, if you want to go in client side, everyone knows somebody, so ask for an intro. I've mentioned this already, but be very specific about what you want. So don't just ask for a job, ask for something specific. Go to events. So there's tons and tons of meetups and conferences and exhibitions and seminars about all of this all over the Midlands. So get yourself out there and go to events. It gives you things to talk about. It gives you opportunity to meet people. Network, so on LinkedIn, and networking in any area you can. There's the IPA, there's the PRCA, there's lots of sector and industry groups on things like Meetup and Eventbrite, Envite. Pimp your CV, don't be boring. Don't just send a Word document style. Try and make it pop a little bit. And I'm not saying star flashes and cheesy stuff, but you want to stand out. And please don't say, I'm a motivated professional, blah, 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 in your opening statement. It's so boring. And then the other thing is be persistent. Tenacity is what it's going to take. And you won't get anywhere if you just the first knockback you get, or you get 10 emails ignored, you won't get anywhere if you don't carry on. So if you're passionate, be persistent. Thank you. That's the end of my presentation. Are we doing questions now or later? Okay.
Yeah. I think let's have another round of applause for Anthony Tatum. We apologize for technical problems. That was a great talk. Thank you. Now we're going to take a short break. We will come back to you in a couple of minutes. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us live at the Tank and Coventry University for our Careers in the Media Speaker Series. Now let's welcome our second guest for the day, Head of Sales and Marketing at Mac Birmingham, Lindsay Cook. Welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you. Hi, so I'm going to talk to you again about me and a bit about my career in arts marketing, which is quite a niche area of marketing. So I started planning this talk out and I thought about where you are in your academic careers and your second year-ish, and I tried to remember back, very far back in the distance, to how that felt for me and what I was concerned about. I was at Bristol University. I did a joint honours degree in English and drama, and the drama part of that was also film and television, so not that dissimilar to you guys. And what happened to me around that time is I had a bit of a panic, because the thing was, I kind of thought I was a creative person. I am a creative person, but I thought I was an artist. And what I realised at university was I really wasn't that good. I was surrounded by lots of people that had all been at the National Youth Theatre together, who were amazing, amazing talents. Some of whom I now see on TV or directing at the Royal Shakespeare Theatre. Not me at all. So I started panicking. The other thing I knew is I'd been admitted to Bristol University on an offer of 2 Bs, and I was going to ace my A-levels in English and drama. I didn't, actually. I did fine, but the only reason I got into Bristol was that I did really well on my business studies A-level. And that was the point where I started thinking, if I'm not an artist, perhaps I need to start thinking about business. Perhaps that's actually where my skills are. And I looked at every graduate training scheme with horrible banks. And I remember going to events run by Arthur Anderson or trying desperately to get onto the John Lewis graduate training scheme. And what actually happened is that I ended up temping for 3 years. There you go. There's my, this is a tumbleweed, if you can't see it. I temped for an engineering insurance company because I didn't know what else to do. I'd been temping for them a little bit in Bristol. As I finished my degree, they wanted me to stay. They said they'd transfer the work to Birmingham, where my parents were. So it was just an easy thing to fall into. So I started doing quite well there, and they had a graduate training scheme. And just as I was on the point of thinking, well, I'll push myself forward, maybe insurance is the life for me, I was thrown a lifeline. And that was that a friend of mine had started teaching youth theatre at the Midlands Arts Centre. And they said, I need an assistant. It's on Sundays, will you come and help? And I did. And I stayed there for some time. That is roughly how I started my engagement with MAC, Midlands Arts Centre. But let's look a little bit at MAC. I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, so I'll just give you a brief overview of what it is. It is an arts centre. It's a contemporary arts centre, which means that the work we do is sometimes a little bit contentious, often political. It's very socially motivated. We're very much connected to our community. So we'll run through some things here. So we've got 3 different sizes of theatres. They're actually comparatively small for an arts venue. So the biggest one only seats 220 people. We've got an outdoor arena. I've got a photo of that for you in a minute. A cinema, where we have at least 3 film screenings a day. A huge main gallery, 4 other spaces, including a community gallery. 19 studios. The learning programme is a huge part of what makes MAC incredibly unique. So you can learn there, you can do jewellery, you can do painting and drawing, you can do acting, you can do lots of different dance art forms. It's all under one roof. And everyone that teaches is actually a practising artist. So this isn't someone just telling you because they've learnt from a book. This is someone showing you because it's something they actually do. We also have a very active cafe, bar and shop, which is particularly well because we're set in a beautiful 200-acre park. So MAC receives over 1 million visits per year. I'll give you a bit of context. That makes us, so Visit England do a survey every year, And of the non-paying arts attractions, because you don't have to pay to get in the door and our exhibitions are free, of those non-paying attractions, we are 12th nationally. We're the #1 in the West Midlands by quite some way. And we do an awful lot. So there you go. There's nearly 600 performances of theatre, comedy, music, dance, poetry, about 950 film screenings, 26 exhibitions, and over 1,200 courses. We're an exceptionally busy centre. And that there is a little image of our lovely outdoor arena, which is quite a weird little space. MAC as a building is incredibly eccentric. We had a redevelopment where we closed in 2008 and reopened 2 years later. And we didn't have enough money to pull the building to the ground and build it up again. We just managed to drive like a new spine through the building and find some more space. So it's still quite a weird, eccentric building to make your way around. This is a remnant. It was built in the early 70s by students who'd come over from Europe. They camped in the park and they built this by hand with no safety equipment. I was just saying that we have photos of them barefoot, no hard hats, no high visibility jackets, unfortunately no claims, so that's good. So we go back to me and my relationship with MAC. Here's a little timeline because I have been there for a long time, 18 years now. So as I said, I started as a youth theatre leader and directed some shows there. So I had a little creative outlet. And then someone said to me there was a role coming up as a marketing officer. Now, I've always been quite good at writing and communicating, and that's mostly predicated on listening to what people want and how they want to be communicated with. So I managed to get that job. I think that's amazing based on my experience. But anyway, I started as marketing officer. I still stayed on teaching the youth theatre. I also taught privately drama classes in the evening. And then there was a vacancy to teach adult theatre, which I always think sounds a little bit racier than it really is. It was just like a grown-up youth theatre, I suppose. So I did those things because I still wasn't totally sure that I wanted to commit to an office-based role. And then the opportunity came up to go for the job as marketing and development manager. And I did that, and that's my first lesson, was that it changed the relationships I had in the organisation. Because I wanted to move up, people that had previously been my colleagues found it a little hard to adjust. And that's, I suppose, a lesson that I think I wanted to share with you. Those relationships will change. It's not a bad thing. You just need to understand that that's absolutely what you want to do with your role. So I had that role, and then this is the point that MAC closed in 2008, and they made me redundant. That was great, because I just had my first child. So I actually had a lovely extended maternity leave, and then I was asked to do some freelance work with Warwick Arts Centre. Not very far from here. I don't know if you guys have been there. It's undergoing a bit of refurbishment at the moment. It's a lovely venue. It's quite different from MAC. It doesn't have the learning programme, and it has much bigger halls and a big classical music programme. So it was a different shift, but in being there, I learnt different ways of working and a different kind of experience and helped them get in a new website and ticketing system. All of those skills developed so that when MAC reopened, they actually wanted me back to come and run everything, which was fantastic. So this was a junior management role, and then they had me back as the head role. Unfortunately, just as I was having my second child, they made my role redundant. However, there was an opening that I could come back in a more junior role, which I did, because I just had a child and I needed something with that flexibility. I came back thinking, I'll just get my head back into the working world and then I'll move on. But actually, within a year, they promoted me back up and actually further up, so I became part of the senior management team. And that's where I've been ever since, although I have made some changes, which we'll look at now. So I was trying to give you an overview of what I do. My job is quite unique. I don't think you'd see this job advertised anywhere, and I'll explain why. So sorry, this is hard to read. But so there's my job. Now, MAC is split into two companies. So we've got the charity, which is all the artistic output, and then the trading company. So the charity turns over about 1.2 million. The trading company turns over nearly 2 million. It's incredibly vital to sustain the artistic work that we do. And I am responsible for the marketing and sales for both of those companies together. So if you follow the line through, these are the 4 departments that I run. Marketing, that includes communications and PR, our digital work, so running the website, and audience development. Community and outreach is a huge part of MAC's core ethos. I run the sales and information team, so that's the team that you buy your tickets from. As part of that, I have become a geek about data. Data is a huge part of arts marketing. I'm very good at understanding ticketing systems and the intricate nature, I should say, of them. And it's also about the customer experience. Now, all of these things are interwoven together. Now, this is where I say my job got a little bit weird. Because what we also had a conferencing department. We called them event hires. What we had was a very small and successful conferencing team with excellent customer service and an equally good sales and information team, possibly with not the best customer service, but they had the round-the-clock attention. So I actually merged those two departments, saving the company quite a lot of money, but also creating something that I don't think exists in any other arts organisation, of that combined hybrid. An important thing for me to tell you about MAC as well, we only close on Christmas Day. So actually, there is no time to stop, pause and breathe, and our biggest outgoing is staff. So anything you can do to economise without breaking people's spirit is a great way to go. And then somehow I got landed with retail. Retail's really interesting. I think you'll all know that funding has been cut from arts organisations, so you start looking at diversifying income. We started selling a couple of gift cards and postcards from the ticket office, and that's now grown. We now sell a lot of artist-made work, and it's a really interesting gift shop, and we've started commissioning our own merchandise as well. So everything is about being resilient and changing the business model. So the challenge is, MAC's audience is vast. I liken it to the NHS. It's cradle to grave care. The youngest things we do are for 3-month-old babies. We also have a project on at the moment called Celebrating Age, which is about people's right to be artists in their 80s and 90s, that sort of thing. So it's really hard when you think MAC actually runs on really small budgets. I have been told that my entire marketing budget is about the same as the budget for the Christmas show set at the Birmingham Repertory Theatre. It just doesn't match. So we have an awful lot of events and very little to market them with. In fact, if you were to take my marketing spend and divide it by the number of things we do, we'd have about £23 per event. Now, obviously, you can't do that. You need to make sense and look at where you're going to get the best return for that investment. So that's a constant ongoing challenge. Now, the other thing is MAC is a partnership organisation. We kind of think of ourselves as part of the arts ecology. So it's important that we bring new artists up and give them a space to be creative and take their work to audiences. But that means it's really hard to control the brand. And I've got a few examples for you here. We've done a little bit of work of our brand, and I like it a lot. It's nice, it's contemporary, it's a lovely ungloss matte finish. So this is the kind of look we're going for. Now, occasionally someone comes in, and it could be a show that's incredibly well known. Do you know this book? You all know this book, The Very Hungry Caterpillar. We couldn't touch that. That's a brand on its own, and that will sell. I'm going to show you something we did for... this was a season for families, for digital work for kids. So I'm just going to show this. It's nice, yes? Everyone tell me it's nice. It makes me feel better. And then this is another partnership that didn't ask us what we thought of this print. I don't know how you feel about this. But this, to me, doesn't reflect what we want to deliver as a contemporary arts centre. And this happens all the time. And I think part of that is because we are so welcoming and open that perhaps it's very hard to control the things that you are, the things that make you you. Having said that, the event will be marvellous. Do come along, it's for a music festival. So our digital presence is incredibly complicated. Our website providers, how we haven't given them a nervous breakdown, I don't know. Because I asked them to distill what was difficult, challenging and rewarding about working with Mac. And what they said is, it's not that you do so many different things, it's that you do so much of all those different things. So it's very hard. If you imagine what the homepage of a website might look like, it's very hard to think about all the things our homepage needs to do. It needs to be selling, conferencing, it needs to be pointing people to the shop, it needs to be talking about the projects that we do, as well as just blatantly showing the shows and the opportunities that we have. Yes, I talked about being a data geek. All the different technical systems we have to integrate, because one of the things that I have to do is measure the impacts of the work that we put out there. So we have to look at customer service levels, and we have to have a ticketing system that talks to a website, and before that we look at getting a room booking system that talks into the ticketing system. So I've developed skills that I never knew I wanted to develop, but I've actually become quite good at understanding it all. The other thing is that as an arts venue, we are what's called an NPO, a National Portfolio Organisation, which means we're one of the organisations who receives core funding from the Arts Council. But for that, we have to agree certain deliverables, and that very much shapes our business plan and the offers that we do. And so for me, it's not just about putting bums on seats and selling tickets. It's also about making sure that we're reaching out into those communities and getting a really broad group of people to experience art. It's about thinking of MAC as a gateway. So the way that we measure success isn't always about money. So this here is a lovely picture. This is MAC in its infancy and how it started. It was literally a tent in the park that developed into what we have today. I started thinking about the fact that I work in an in-house role and what that means. Now, for me, it's incredibly important that where I work, I can connect with the ethos and the values of that organisation. MAC's ethos is to make arts an important part of people's lives. It's encouraging everyday creativity so that people like me that kind of think we want to be an artist but we don't really know how to, can have a go without judgment. And I think it's that ethos that's driven me and kept me engaged, that wanting to deliver the high quality arts to everyone. I enjoy the long-term accountability. I know that's really strange, but I'm at a point now where I can strategically influence the work that we do, and I'm there long enough to be responsible. And I think sometimes, not always, when you outsource some of your work, you don't have that long-term accountability. It's that you'll try something and then someone goes. So that works for me. Equally, this role has become quite political. I don't know if the West Wing is any kind of reference that you guys get, but I absolutely feel sometimes with the excitement of the hot politics in Birmingham City Council that I'm right in the thick of it. It is literally like the thick of it as well. That's another cultural reference. So I really enjoy that. It's also about reputation and external partnerships. I may work at MAC, but I talked again about I'm part of this ecology. So I will work nationally with Arts Council and different agencies, and also with different artists and arts companies. Resilience is it's the buzzword of the moment in the arts. And what that means is stop holding out your hand and expecting the government to give you money. Now, MAC, we call it self-generate. We self-generate 82% of I think we're 4.8 million turnover now. let's give you a bit of perspective. Usually in an arts venue, the reverse is true. You'd get about 82% subsidy and the rest is self-generated. So the fact that we are so resilient means that a couple of years ago, when the City Council handed us a 70% cut, it was worrying, and we thought we might have to totally reinvent our business model before we realised that we could just tweak things and just be entrepreneurial. And that's the best thing about working at the level I work in the organisation I work. I can affect change and I can see real impact. And that my remit has widened. I said before that you wouldn't see my job advertised. And I think perhaps this is something that happens a lot in the arts industry. When you get someone that's been in a job for any length of time and they show different skills and knowledges, sometimes the role evolves around that person. Now, the vulnerability then is that if that person leaves, it's very hard to fill that gap. But actually, for me, it's been the thing that's kept me at Mac for so long, constantly evolving. And then this thing that I've got down the bottom is that I worry that I've become institutionalised. It's an absolute paranoia I have to feel the need to prove myself, because so many people in the arts, because the organisations are usually small, they hop around and move between organisations and go to larger and larger, more responsible roles, whereas I've done it vertically in one organisation. I'm so paranoid about it that I even wrote an article about it for Arts Professional magazine. This is another horrible smug photo. I might just do this. But it was exactly that, about saying how you can develop and evolve in one organisation. And this quote that I skipped past, there's a guy called Ben Cameron. He's done a brilliant TEDx talk. I would beg you to go and look at it if you are thinking about working in this industry. And there was a point where I had a little crisis of confidence. I wrote that article for Arts Professional thinking, I've got to go somewhere, I've got to do something to prove myself, to prove that I can do something outside of Mac. And he said this: burnout, which I see in my colleagues a lot, is not about exhaustion. It's not about having so much responsibility that you feel the weight of the world crushing you and you can't sleep and you panic about everything. That is not burnout. Burnout is when your personal values and that of the organisation you're working for no longer match. And I feel like I will leave Mac the minute I get to that feeling. And I'm not there yet. So moving past my smug photo. Right. The external roles I have I want to give you this takeaway. It took me until I reckon about 5 years ago to realise that ego is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to say, I'm really good at this. And so I'm going to tell you now that externally, outside of Mac, within the sector, I do see myself as an influencer, a leader, a mentor, and I work sector-wide on project managing and collaboration. And I think it's fine to feel really proud about those things. And these are all the different agencies that I work with outside of Mac. So I wanted to show you that being in one organisation, if you're in the right industry, doesn't mean that you can't expand and grow in different ways. Now, this is the other reason I want to tell you why I love working at Mac. Oh, I'm sorry, this is a little bit fuzzy. Has everyone seen B-Movie? It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Brilliant film, which my children made me watch, but it's really funny. But this is the opening statement from that film. According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to lift its fat little body off the ground. The bee, of course, flies anyway, because bees don't care what humans think is possible. That, for me, is Mac. I laughed my bottom off when I saw this, because the wings of Mac are too small funding, not enough people, too much to talk about, stretched resources. The fat little body is full of art and creativity, and it is a joy to watch it succeed and grow and flourish. So then I wanted to talk about you guys and about breaking into arts marketing, if anyone was interested. The things I've learned and what I'd like to tell you guys about. I think some of this Anthony covered. Be realistic about your starting point. The lowest paid job in my marketing department is a marketing officer, and the salary is circa £19,000. That isn't a graduate entry position. Do not think salary is an indication of the experience needed. It's sad but true that an internship and that kind of work experience, which is unpaid, is the thing that's going to start opening the doors for you. And I think that brings up one of the biggest barriers to working, probably in the marketing field, wider than just the arts sector, but definitely in the arts, is that I think the arts is really good at recognising barriers and the need for inclusivity. I think we do fairly well with ethnic diversity. I think we're getting much, much better at disability as a barrier, but class and social mobility, I think, is one of the biggest barriers we need to break down. And so there are things we can do. There are bursaries, like a Jerwood bursary that we did, where we were able to create a paid internship, but we need to secure funding for that, and I think more of that needs to happen in the sector. I'm sorry it's that way. I interview people to work on our ticket office, just selling tickets that have masters and PhDs. But if they've not got the experience, or at least an understanding of how an arts organisation works, they're at a disadvantage. There are different agencies that can help you. I've listed some of them here that can help you find good intern positions within the arts and creative sector. So we talked about work experience. This is going to be very Birmingham-centric because that's my sphere I move in. There's Birmingham Arts Volunteers are on Facebook. That is a collaboration between all the different arts and cultural venues in the city to kind of create a volunteer workforce. You can be a self-starter. We ran a next generation programme called the Cannon Hill Collective. And as part of that, we gave young people the space to think about their own arts projects. And we connected them with lots of professionals in the sector. And some of them, as a lady called Anissa, was just amazing, and she built her own organisation called Beat Freaks. She's one of the most powerful young people in the sector, I'd say now. And she has created a young person's organisation that do audience development and their own arts and cultural projects. Also, I'd suggest being geographically mobile. It's good to move around the country and get more experience. I know I've talked a lot about my tiny little world of Mac that I've stayed in, but if I could, now I'm limited by where I am in my life stage. If I could, I know and I understand the need to move around the country and understand the different ways regionally that people work. I think that's a great opportunity. And then if you're really interested in this field, there are things that you can start doing now that don't cost any money. There's networks and learning resources. The Arts Council is full of brilliant case studies. And the Arts Marketing Association is a paid membership, but it has a free resource called Culture Hive that has loads of learning and case studies about the way we arts marketers work and the resources available to us. And then this last bit of advice for you are all the things I've learned from interviewing many, many people for many, many presentations. So the first thing is read and respond to the person's specification. Don't ignore it and tell them about you and the job that you want to have. Look at what the job that's on offer is and match it. I guarantee if you write an application with mini headers in that each refer to the person's spec and give a really strong example, you're very likely to get an interview. The second thing is that usually when I interview, particularly for a marketing role, I will ask for a presentation and I will give you the option of picking which market you want to talk about targeting. 9 times out of 10, a young person will tell me how to connect with young people. And what they really mean is me. I'm telling you about people like me. And that's not interesting to me. That doesn't show me any skills. Also, I'm going to suggest that you, as one person, do not represent everyone of a similar age group like you. people behave really differently. We do a lot of segmentation in arts marketing. Age is just one demographic. Age is cutting the pie this way. And actually, people of a certain age, you can cut them in loads of different ways according to their behaviours and their needs and their interests. Believing in stereotypes will burn you. Telling me that people over 50 aren't digitally savvy is just totally wrong. So watch out for that one. Show empathy. I told you before that I got into arts marketing because I'm a good listener. I listen to what people want and I know how to address that. I know that a family trying to book a time out wants no risk. They want to know where the toilets are, if it's okay if their child makes a mess in the cafe. Very little about the actual show they're booking for. And be able to talk eloquently about your passion. I will ask this question in every interview. Tell me about an arts performance or an exhibition, anything that you felt really strongly about. You either really loved it or you really hated it. 9 times out of 10, they'll say, there was this show and it was really good. I don't care about the title of the show. I need you to eloquently tell me and explain what about it made you feel so passionate. Even if you hated it, I don't care if you hate it. I need you to be able to articulate why, because that's what arts marketing is. So thank you so much for listening to me. I hope I've conveyed my passion for MAC and the arts sector.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. That was great. Thank you to both our guest speakers for this very informative session. If you want to find out more about our speakers or follow them on their social media channels, search for Big Cat Marketing on Facebook and on Twitter. Add Mag Birmingham. And now we'll be having a question and answer session. So for any members in our audience, do we have any questions?
Yeah, well, they're not so often. I think they're Leicester and London. We're Birmingham and London, so I suppose that could be it. We're both full service. I think Big Cat's better. Our branding's way cooler. Big bones in half buried in beaches. But I'd like to be that big. They're part of Mission Group, which is a larger organisation that they may fit into the broken bit of big agencies where it's more about shareholder value than campaign efficacy and the results for clients. So not in my knowledge, but thanks for pointing that out.
Jumping in though, I think the name of your brand is incredibly important. We were just MAC for decades. But if I asked you now, could you think of other brands? Yeah. So many times people phone us up to ask about lipstick. Yeah, I know, all the time. And that's why we made a decision a couple of years ago to sort of rebrand with our full name, Midlands Arts Centre, and then sort of use MAC as our colloquial pet name for ourselves.
Thank you for lovely talks, very interesting and inspiring. Well, I'm a final year media student, so I'm starting my journey into getting a proper career. And I'm curious, and this is a question for both of you, which is the biggest, most painfully memorable failure or challenge that you experienced that got you to learn the toughest lesson that you learned? And I'm not saying that this should be something that happened in the beginning of your career, but I guess that a career is always a learning curve, so the biggest challenge or failure.
Go first.
No, I'm trying to think. I'm not saying that I've never failed, because that would be absolute rubbish. I'm trying to think of a good example. Have you got one off the top of your head?
Loads. I started the business myself, so I've never been employed, but I have taken on too many new business opportunities and pitches and gone to them unprepared. So I suppose that is a relatable example of failure. I went to pitch the Camping and Caravan Club maybe 15 years ago, and at the end of my presentation he said, "You really haven't read the brief, have you?" Interestingly enough, 15 years later they've come back to us. They've probably forgotten who we are and all changed, so we've got another Camping and Caravan brief at the end of the month to pitch for, and I will make sure I have read the brief and really understood it, and will answer the questions in the brief, not the questions that I want to answer, which talks to your... So be prepared. That's where you could make mistakes.
Mm-hmm. I think, so I'm working on a sort of cross-organisational project at the moment. We're looking at how we can connect with hard-to-reach groups to be our audiences. And we had one of our first meetings, we sort of did an open invite, and so many people came, we were virtually sat on each other's laps. We really didn't think it was going to be that popular. And we started talking. So there's a company that a lot of us work with called the Audience Agency, who actually are a data pooling organisation that give us a lot of intelligence about the population, particularly people that attend arts events. And we started talking using their language, their segmentation, and realised that half of the people in the room weren't on that journey with us because they're in much smaller organisations. They probably don't even have a full-time member of staff based on marketing. So I think we'd kind of steamrolled in without really considering the differences between the participants. So I think that was a good lesson in actually thinking beyond your little bubble and reaching out to people and sharing the knowledge, which is the greatest thing about the arts. Of course, there is some competition, there always would be, but actually on the whole, it's far more collegiate.
Anybody else? We've kind of died on the microphone stage, so I might have to shout. I have actually got questions for both of you, and I shall start with Anthony, as he has been not just the last one to speak. I just wondered if you could give our students, as someone who founded your own company, kind of tips or advice on how they might go about doing that themselves, because I think a few of them in the room have said they wanted to settle companies to deal with either photography business or videography, and so it might be useful for them to gain an understanding of practicalities.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is to be very clear what it is you are, and then turn that into a profile on social media or a website. So having your kind of profile or marketing messaging available. So one of the key things is availability of your message. So I would say that's what it is. The other thing is do it on as low budget as you possibly can. So when I started my first nightclub night, I didn't have enough money to pay for the flyers. So you got the flyers on tick, and then did the event knowing it had to work. Because if it didn't work, then we would never be able to get another flyer again. So having that low cost base and working on zero budget. So you've got to do everything yourself. There's no money available. You've got no clients. You've got to start from somewhere. So start low cost and make your message available. And then the final thing is perseverance. things don't work. No one's interested in your brand. No one's interested in what you've got to offer. Everyone's got services and clients that do what you need. So it does take a long time. So you've got to give it 12 to 18 months before you really start to get traction. But then you've got word of mouth, then you've got clients coming back to you. So it's those three things really.
And Lindsay, my question for you is actually a bit different. It's more to do with your organisation. You're trying to reach and cater to everyone.
Yes.
And that is a huge challenge because everyone has different tastes and different interests. And part of your talk was very much your interest in data. So I just wondered how you go about using those data and the demographic kind of information to target specific groups.
It can vary. There's lots of different tools out there that are available to us. When you give your postcode, when you are buying a ticket, you have no idea how much data that gives us. We know we can then group you by what time of day you're most likely to buy, how you like to do the transaction, whether you're a face-to-face person or you like to do it on the internet and not talk to anyone. There's loads of information. I suppose there's things that we've tried doing. So we looked at our whole customer database, because I said on £23 per event, you just can't do it in a granular way. So we've looked at how we could sort of, if you think about the audience as a cake, how you can cut the cake in different ways. One of the theories was that you can cut your audience into a mainstream, a classic and a contemporary audience. And so we tried to do that, because the idea is that people just like what they like. If you're a mainstream person, you like watching X Factor, you like Marvel films, that's kind of what you like, and you're not really going to be persuaded to try something different. So we just need to make sure that you're getting more of the same. That's how the premise went. So we looked at MAC data and we realised that of the classic, contemporary and mainstream, we didn't do anything mainstream at MAC. So we kind of got rid of that segment straight away. So then we really had people that were either really contemporary, really motivated by art and high art, or classic, which meant that they liked more traditional art forms and they were quite risk averse and safe. So we started tailoring a lot of our communications and language in that way. And then we had this little hypothesis that we worried about, that actually turned out to be true, that our classic audience were just contemporaries that were a bit older. So, in fact, that's a classic failure. I should have mentioned that one before. That was classic failure, that it was just the wrong way to look at them. So, yeah, there are so many different ways to look at data. But for me, the really interesting thing is putting all those different data forms on top of each other. So at the moment, we have free Wi-Fi in our building. And I said we've got 1 million visits. I'm looking at shopping centre technology, because I want to be able to look at people when they come in the building and see how they're using us. Are they just coming in? And we suspect a lot of people do this. They come in from the park, use the toilets, buy a drink from the cafe and leave. They're not really engaging with the art. So if I can track them on the Wi-Fi and their smartphones, how can I serve them up messages while they're on the toilet? Is that wrong? It's slightly wrong. Okay. Big brother is watching, or big sister in this case.
So as part of your marketing strategy, if you notice, for example, that you aren't engaging a specific demographics, to go with what you said earlier, older people, does that change the kind of marketing that you send out to try and recapture that group, or do you just kind of move towards the groups that you are engaging?
Yeah, it definitely would. There's different tools so we can look at segments, and we know where they like to find out information about what's going on, the kind of newspapers they read, other venues they might visit. So we would very much tweak our communications. But actually at MAC, it's quite a unique challenge in that we tend to not lose any audience. What we're looking for is a kind of balance across all those different segments. So within the arts, there's actually, the Arts Council like us to use, there's a segmentation tool called Spectrum, and it kind of divides people into 10 segments. 3 of them are really highly engaged, 3 of them are sort of middle engagement, and then those hard to reach are 4 different segments. And what we're looking for overall is a kind of balance. So at the moment, we're about 40% really highly engaged people, which is great because we do contemporary work. And also, brutally, they're willing to spend money. So that's about the resilience. That middle engagement, we're also on 40%. That's about right and good. But that 20% and hard to reach is really diamond. It's really hard to get that engagement, and we will be looking to grow that constantly.
And that's part of your role in the marketing.
Absolutely, yeah. Audience development is an incredibly important part of the work we do.
Brilliant. Thank you. Jana?
I have another question for you. So, let's say I am a young artist. I have no money, but I really, really want to do an exhibition at your venue. What is involved in the process? How do you approve my work? What do I have to do in order to get this exhibition going? Do you have any programs that offer any sort of financial help to make the event happen? I'm just curious about the...
I mean, there's lots of different ways and routes in. So on our website, we kind of have a really handy like how-to. If you're interested in doing this, because our arts team is made up of producers in different areas, and they would just be deluged in proposals constantly. In fact, they are. They constantly have artists connecting with them. So there is a clear strategy in the way that they look at those things. Just because you talked about exhibitions, I can tell you we program about 3 years in advance, because it's one of the biggest challenges in my role, actually, is each art form works on a very different timeline. So exhibitions 3 years in advance. Cinema, we're lucky to know 6 weeks in advance what's going on. I've pushed it to 8 weeks, but they hate it. So it's really, they're very different timelines. We do work to secure bursaries. So we've just had a bursary out for craft artists, for people that sort of work with textiles and that kind of mixed media. So there are bursaries available that we always put as news on the website. But also, and it's part of our communication strategy, is if we don't do it, we signpost where does. So quite often, if another organisation has an opportunity, we will share it.
I'm very interested in the do you work with freelancers or okay?
Yeah, we work with loads of freelancers, videographers, photographers, animators, copywriters, a real broad mix, and we have a core team. So we've got 4 people in each of our teams. Sometimes it's never an equal amount of busyness, so we could have less work in PR but be absolutely stacked in the studio. So then we use freelancers for specific work. It could be copy, it could be animation or graphics. Yeah. And there is a question here, and she's I think she wants to.
Yeah, I have a question was because I will have an interview in this week, and it's the first time for me to have a interviews. So I want to know, what do you have any details for me, and because any no, do you have any advice for me and any details I need to pay attention?
For a presentation?
Yeah.
Right. So you've got to do an interview and a presentation?
Yeah.
Okay. Have they given you a time limit for your presentation?
No.
Okay. I suspect it's probably between 8 to 10 minutes. Practice. Yeah. I think you say that as well, wouldn't you? Practice your presentation and don't go over. Because the minute you go over, that interviewer is going to start getting a bit irritated. But I would say, I'm going to echo something Anthony said, know what you want. Know what you want, know who you are. I think when you're interviewing someone, you want to see an individual. And sadly, sometimes interviews, it can get a bit homogenised, can't it? Like you've seen the same sort of person time and time again. I want to see someone who is distinctive, who is passionate, and who will go that extra mile. Also, prepare questions. I think I want someone that is interested in the business, that is kind of invested. So remember that, actually. An interview is a two-way thing. Right now, you just must feel like, I want the job, I want a job. actually show them that you're engaged, but understand that you're trying to understand their business and if you'll fit there as well. And good luck.
Thank you. And I think I'm very similar with you because you study about the drama, but you work as another industry.
Mm-hmm.
Same as I want to work in the fashion industry. So
Right.
So it's a fashion work, but I didn't have so much knowledge about this industry. So what should I do in the interviews? I don't want that look like
Like you don't know,
yeah.
like you don't know the industry.
Yeah.
I think you can admit that you've got lots to learn. I think you should know what really drives you and why you want to work in that industry. Any advice from you?
Well, we've always been about not so much fake it till you make it. So we've always been one for saying yes, we can do that, and then if we get the chance, we will figure it out. So I don't know if that's what the right answer, but I'm a big believer in pushing the envelope, saying I can do it, and you've got to exude confidence in being that, like being that brave, and you've got to then deliver.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And ask them what they want, what qualities they want from a candidate. And sometimes at an interview they'll say, "Is there anything that you haven't told us about that you think we could do with knowing?" So have a little list in your head of things you need to know about me, and if you don't think you've talked about them, then say it. But confidence, and I know it's really easy to sit here and say be confident, but nobody wants a little mouse to come in. You don't learn anything about that person. And a good interviewer will have questions to try and open you up and put you at ease. I'm terrible for joking when I'm interviewing people. I'm an absolute nightmare and a talker, as you can tell. But all I'm trying to do is get the best out of someone. And I once interviewed someone that was so nervous she went purple and she started hyperventilating. And I just told her to go and walk around the park and interviewed her again later and then gave her the job because she cared so much.
Thank you.
I was
Okay.
once so embarrassed and nervous that I sweat so much that when I left the interview and looked in the mirror and looked at the white shirt I was wearing, there was red hair dye all over.
Oh,
And I somehow still got the job.
oh. I have lots of interview horror stories that I could go into. No. I once had someone that was so scared at his interview and clearly did not have the experience and wasn't going to get the job that I coached him through to the end of it. And he was so happy at the end that he leant over the table and kissed me. It was, no, not no. Kind of, oh.
I think it's good to have those. At least it can't be that bad. I was in
Yes.
in a pitch in the Danish embassy and my co-presenter fainted and wet themselves. So in the embassy, I thought there was going to be a diplomatic emergency here. So I think whatever happens, it cannot be as bad as that.
No.
So,
Okay, my last one. They're so good when they come out. I had someone I was interviewing for a graphic design job that was really nervous, but he handed over some examples of his work and it had dried blood on it. And he said, "Oh yeah, when I was photocopying it, I got a paper cut." And I'm like, "And you still gave me the blooded copies of the..." Yeah, that was a classic. He did not get the job.
And on that hygienic note, Paulina?
Thank you, Anthony and Lindsay, for joining us today. We hope everyone enjoyed this session.
Next week.
Thank you, Anthony and Lindsay, for joining us today. We hope everyone enjoyed this session. We'll be back next week, where we'll be joined by guests from WAA, Chosen Birmingham Live, and McCann Digital on them Social Digital. And thank you for watching. I swear,
That was brilliant.